welcome to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts. I'm Ben.
And I'm Curt.
And I think this is going to be a good one.
This is going to be a good one. We're back strong.
We're back. Second episode.
Yeah, no BS this time.
No, none. Out of the way. You know who we are. You know what we're here to do.
All right.
Fucking Morning Zoo. Men on a mission.
So we got a big chunk of stuff today for our second episode here. I think we're going to start with our little media updates. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to be taking a big bite into the world of Quentin Tarantino.
Yep.
Which we're probably not giving ourselves enough time to really get into this. But before we get into how we're going to go about talking about Tarantino, what have you been doing this week?
So
Ben,
I'll pick up the what was that hand movement?
That is a reason that this is a visual. This is an audio thing.
It's because we're gesticulating wildly at each other right now. Picking up off what I was talking about last week. What do I say last week? It's 2 weeks ago, right?
I don't remember.
Every 2 weeks.
It was like a week and a half ago.
Every 2 weeks we do this podcast?
I'm on vacation this week, so this is kind of like in between the 2 week thing that we established last time.
Yeah. Anyway, when last we met, I talked about True Detective, Season 2. I had just watched the first episode of it. I was really excited about it. Now, having finished the series, I can tell you, still excited about it. If anything, it got better.
I was going to say that's good because I didn't realize you had only watched one episode. And now that I know that, those are some pretty bold statements for a guy who had only watched one episode.
I back it all up, man. I stick by what I said. That show is great. It's difficult to compare it to the first season. But ultimately, I think the story is better. Right? In compared, you never watched the first season of True Detective, right? The first season of True Detective, as I might have said last episode, is a kind of a straightforward mystery with the added wrinkle that you're seeing both the mystery, the way it happened, and the kind of principal detective's reflections on it from many years later.
Oh, okay.
Like a decade later, they're getting interviewed about this case that they worked. So that's the kind of narrative frame that you're being shown is these guys, Marty and Rust, talking about what they did, and then you're seeing what actually happened.
Similar to Boondock Saints?
Man, don't fucking talk to me about goddamn Boondock Saints.
Whoa.
Hey, that's going to be a whole episode on its own.
I would love to do a Boondock Saints episode.
So, I'm going to say probably not like Boondock Saints. Maybe a little bit like Boondock Saints. I don't know. Hey, Megan, I'm so sorry for what I said. I'm talking to my wife directly now. I'm apologizing in the podcast. I am the only person I know who hates Boondock Saints as much as I do.
Okay. I'm going to say one thing about Boondock Saints.
and then we going off the rails.
And then we'll get right back on track.
Yep, okay.
Most overrated movie of all time.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
All right, we'll leave it there until we inevitably come back to it. Anyway, so that's kind of the rundown on the first season of True Detective, what makes that season special. What makes the second season special takes a lot longer to come out. Where in the first season, you're kind of given that setup right in the first episode. There are some really good ways that they onboard it to you. The second season presents itself as kind of what I think of as the traditional Southern California mystery, which is like, there's a lot of stuff going on with real estate that I don't really understand. There's a lot of stuff going on with like sex crimes that is like really tough to watch, and all this stuff coming together. So you've got like the combination of the most mundane business deals combined with a little bit of organized crime type stuff combined with just like the most heinous people walking around doing heinous shit, right? And it's harder to get your sea legs into this.
Yeah.
But eventually, once you really start to focus in on the characters, the like two main characters, I would call them the main characters. The characters played by Vince Vaughn and Colin Farrell they have extraordinary arcs. And some of the, just thinking about the course of their journey from the beginning. Vince Vaughn plays the crime boss who had been a crime boss and is now trying to go legit. Colin Farrell plays a cop in this really corrupt city. And he himself is not he's not a shining star of like dutiful police officering. He himself has a lot of shit that he's dealing with. Their fates intertwine in these different ways, and you just watch their journey. There are other characters also, but those characters have some issues. Like, I don't know how familiar you are with the critical conversation surrounding True Detective Season 1. One of the criticisms lodged against it was that it was really, really sexist.
Really?
And it kind of was. You know, I can't say that it wasn't. I still really love it, but there were not a lot of meaningful things for women to do on that show.
Yeah.
There was like one female character who I can remember, and she was one of the main guy's wives, right? And she had like two important plot points that she did. This season, I think the writer, Nick Pizzolatto, nailed it. I think he wanted very badly to respond to that criticism by having a complex female hero. And her name is Ani. She does not fit the bill. She's like think of all the stereotypical ways that men try to write strong female characters, which is like, oh, they're damaged, but also they have stereotypically masculine traits, like they can fight good. Yeah. Right?
Still really hot, though.
Right. Yeah. Still super hot, and they walk around in their undies all the time because they're...
and then eventually they still need to be saved.
Right. And, well, now that's... Now, I don't want to give anything away, but I think her arc does have some redeeming qualities. It doesn't hit on all the bad stereotypes, but it does hit on a few of them, and there's some real bad scenes involving her. Trigger warning if you're going to watch True Detective Season 2. But, man, just overall, like, other than the gender politics stuff, which I understand does not matter that much to a lot of people, but it matters a lot to me. Other than that, just a really terrific show. Taylor Kitsch is in it also. I don't have anything to say about his character. But yeah, True Detective Season 2. My recommendation would be, if you watched True Detective Season 1, this is basically if you're like me. If you're like me and you watched True Detective Season 1 and really loved it, and then heard that True Detective Season 2 wasn't very good, just give it a shot. Give it a shot. Don't feel bad or worried if you don't understand it. Give it a shot, because it really pulls itself together.
Takes a while to come together, but it's worth it.
It takes a while to come together, but this isn't really a spoiler alert. I will say that episode 6 of True Detective Season 2 is one of the greatest episodes of television I've ever seen. Woo. It was as good as a Quentin Tarantino movie. That's how, like, every fucking scene in True Detective Season 2, Episode 6 has, like, those perfect elements of scene craft and, like, writing that you want. Like, characters have these interesting motivations. Everybody has different amounts of information, and everybody enters scenes at different levels of power, leaves them at different levels of power. It's like screenwriting 101 type stuff. But to see it applied so effectively it's like a fucking masterclass. That's my recommendation. Anyway,
strong.
Hey, you know what? I've got a lot of strong feelings about stuff, Curtis. That's why I'm here. What have you been up to?
Just that's your only thing?
No, I don't want to dominate the time too much. I've got a couple more things. I mean, fucking new Kendrick Lamar album came out. Curtis, what do you think I'm going to talk about?
That's I should have.
I'm building up to that.
Yeah, me too. Before my first little media update, I do have a couple little pluggy type things. The first one is that I'm on Spotify, and I started making some, like, I started making some playlists. So if you ever just want to hear some of the stuff Ben and I talk about, I'll probably make a Ben and Curt Till It Hurts playlist. I've already made a, like, albums of 2017 playlist.
That's a great idea.
Kind of like any album that I've even listened to that comes out this year, I'll throw it on there. So like it's a playlist of albums that are all contenders for like my top 10 albums of this year. Not that anybody really cares what I think, but
people are going to care. We're going to do a year's worth of these podcasts. Yep. People are going to care about our albums. They'll
be invested.
Yes.
And then I'll laugh at this podcast that I listen to a year from now and think, I was so humble. No. Really go back and forth on that. The second thing is, it's not up yet, but maybe it'll be up by the time this is up. I did a guest spot on a podcast yesterday from my friend's podcast called Into the Cave. They're on iTunes. They're cool guys. I was on it, so you should go check it out. Not you personally, Ben. You can if you want, but
I'd like to.
Outer you listeners, I think they call you.
People around
go
the
check
radius.
it out. Into the Cave on iTunes. It's a good show. I listen to it sometimes. Just even the ones I'm not on. That's how good it is.
Damn.
And so that's it. The only
how can people find those Spotify playlists? How can I personally find those Spotify playlists? Because
you just have to
I'm
find
interested.
me on Spotify, and my Spotify username is KurtCake5K, just like my Twitter and Instagram.
Okay.
And I think I can make it so like there are more than one like admins to a playlist. So if I can, I'll make you it too, so we can both add things to those playlists. Other than that, I haven't really been doing too much this week. I kind of moved like back a little bit, I guess. Like last time I said I was really getting into that Iron Reagan album, and like that album is so short, it just like didn't quite like satiate my thirst for like that thrash. So I went back into some Ghoul that came out last year. I listened to the new Power Trip album from this year and the new Deez Nuts album, which
I saw your Facebook post about
yeah,
that.
I was just going to reference that. Is like I made a Facebook post about please don't be turned off by the band name Deez Nuts. Like I feel like it's one of the biggest tragedies of the 21st century to like be a band as good as Deez Nuts and be stuck with the name Deez Nuts. Like I feel like that like when they first became a thing, it was kind of popular to have like weird silly band name
Diarrhea Planet.
Yeah, that didn't really like mean anything. Like very different sounds musically, but like some other bands from that era were like Job for a Cowboy and Heavy Heavy Lolo, Fear Before the March of Flames. Like you're just stuck with these weird names and then you become an actual good band. So their new album is great. Also Kendrick came out this week.
Kendrick.
Which we will get into in just a minute. The only other thing is I finished Resident Evil 7 the other day. So that happened.
What was that like? What was that like for you?
You know,
what's your takeaway?
I've been thinking of like the most concise way to like explain this, and the biggest thing about it, I didn't dislike it. I did like the game. I definitely liked it more than like Resident Evil 5 or 6.
Those garbage games.
Or those any other godforsaken like Operation Raccoon City or
God forbid the like online ones.
Revelations and stuff, like any of that shit. But I feel like I didn't play a game. I feel like I just like played an experience. I feel like I directed a movie. I think that is probably like the best.
You're kind of making this sound appealing to me.
Yeah, well, you might like it then. It was over before I thought it would be. I was very, very surprised when it ended. But I guess they were trying. I guess they were kind of trying to return to form, which makes sense because the first, I think, like 3 Resident Evil games, like you could like there were like unlockables for beating them in under 3 hours.
I think
like,
even under 2.
Yeah, they weren't long games.
They're even supposed to. They're so movie influenced already.
Yeah.
Like those Resident Evil games are between the camera angles and everything.
Yeah,
that I think they do have in their mind, like, all right, if you get really good at this game, you'll be able to beat it in less than 2 hours, and you'll get something special for that.
And I mean, one of the cool aspects about that is that I mean, these games the story takes place like I think every game is like overnight. You know, it's one hellish night. So when you're playing a game and it takes you 20 to 30 hours to live through the night, you know, a lot of shit happens. But what are you going to do? So I think the point of this is more like the old games where the point is that it's rather quick, but you can play it a bunch and you get different endings and unlock things. And I just wish I had known that going in, not expecting like a 10 or 12 hour
the thing
campaign.
A thing games do sometimes that I like is they'll make like the chapter select screen. You can like go through the different chapters and see how many chapters there are, like you could in a book, you know, just to give yourself an expectation of like, okay, when is this thing going to end? And then sometimes they go against that, like with Portal, where you have, this is a number of test chambers that I'm going to go through, and then towards the end, spoiler alert for Portal 1, towards the end you end up going outside the test chambers and there are way more puzzles than you expected there to be. I don't know. So you can do, Games, man. Video games.
I mean, so that's just about it with that. It was good. It was fun. I played it. I play every game I play on easy the first time I play it because I just want the story. I don't want to die 75 fucking times on one boss. Like, I just want to, and then that helps. If the story is good, I'll probably go back and play it again. So I like to just get it out of the way. But that game was even. I know I can't really complain because it was on easy, but like it wasn't very hard even for on easy. Like I ended up. Typically, like, I feel like when you play, like, a survival horror game, you get those additional weapons, like the shotgun and the grenade launcher, and you just have them. You don't use them. You're just like, I'll use my pistol until I have nothing left.
Like, these are my emergency
weapons.
When
I get to a boss, I'll be glad I have this grenade launcher. And I just got to a point where I was like, I'm just going to start using my grenade launcher because I have too much grenade ammo, and I just, like, want to see what it does, and clearly I'm not going to need it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was pretty good.
Yeah. I played a video game, too. Game came out called The Signal from Tolva. It's a pretty cool little indie game.
I haven't heard of it.
5 people made this video game.
Oh, really?
It's a robot-centric first-person shooter where you explore an alien planet, right? It's pretty goddamn cool, Curtis. It's like and I would say it's mostly cool not for the ways in which it is a shooter. It's mostly cool for the ways in which it is an exploration game. But it's, again, like with Resident Evil 4, it all comes back to moments for me. Yep. You know, like there are these great moments where you'll be walking around. There's like a day-night cycle in this game. You're looking at different things around you, and suddenly you just see these like laser blasts in the distance start firing at each other. And you know that some factions just started fighting. You kind of make that choice. It's like, all right, do I want to get mixed up in this? Do I want to hang back? Just that. Something about and they must have known that this was going to be a cool part of their game because they made those lasers look fucking sick. Just sick looking lasers in this game.
I might not get involved, but I do want to watch.
I want to watch this go down. Maybe pick off the stragglers when they're done. You know,
loot the bodies.
Yeah. So I don't need to give this too much time, other than to say, A, it looks great. B, shooting good enough. C, it's one of those games where when I started playing it, I did not expect the story to be as good as it ended up being.
That's always nice.
Yeah, like I have a nice little surprise. You know, I ended up reading a 48-page like lore Bible about it. So I'm a dork.
That's how you know, like, I've said this before about other things, like that's how you know when you get to a certain level of like enjoyment of media where it's like when you spend more time reading about something you enjoy than actually enjoying that thing, like when you just start reading books about hip-hop more than you listen to hip-hop, you're like, I'm a fucking loser. Like,
I want to know the academic side of this.
Hip-hop yearbook? Yes, please. Like, so we'll give a little bit more time, but not too much time. We got to talk about the new Kendrick album.
Talk about, damn.
Yes.
I always try to think about how to enunciate that title. Is it like it does? Have you seen like the cover?
Yes, I have.
It's not. It's clearly not. Damn. He's not saying damn. That's a downcast, downtrodden. Damn.
So, all right. What are your initial thoughts?
I love it. I just love it. I love it more every time I listen to it. How about you?
So I've always been a little cold on Kendrick, which you know, but our listeners might not know.
Yeah, tell them.
I've never listened to Good Kid, Mad City, but I want to. I just haven't. And I didn't know anything about it until I had never even heard of him until To Pimp a Butterfly came out, and I like the concept of Good Kid, Mad City, but I've just never listened to it. And as I've told you before, I think To Pimp a Butterfly is a very great album, a very important album, but like he didn't write that for me. Like he wrote that for like black kids in Compton. Like I listened to it and I'm just like, I'm not black. I feel like this doesn't resonate with me as much as but maybe that's ignorant. I don't know.
I've thought about that because that's the same thing you said to me, and I've thought about that a lot. And I think he wrote that album for everyone, man. I think that album is about it is definitely aimed towards like he says on Damn, it's aimed towards lifting up black artists. Like, most, if not everyone who worked on that album who's listed in the credits is black. A lot of them are very important people in the music industry, but as well as being that, they are black, and they have been making music that hinges on the history of black music in America and abroad over the last 100 years. And like, that's one side of that album. But on the other side of it, it's also about it just increasing empathy, you know? Like, put that album in front of a white kid, and ideally, well, not a child, don't play that album for any children.
Talking like a white 17-year-old.
Talking like a white teenager. And ideally, they would also be able to get something out of it. You know, they would be able to get a little bit of perspective on how someone lives differently from them in the same America.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what it's done for me, listening to that album a lot. Because I wasn't into Kendrick very much until like the last couple months.
Yeah.
Till literally the first single from Damn came out. And it just clicked for me all of a sudden. I started listening to like To Pimp a Butterfly over and over again. Listen to Good Kid, Mad City a handful of times.
I'm gonna have to.
Didn't love it, but it's good. It's really, really good. But yeah. Anyway, your thoughts on Damn?
I think
Damn.
Damn. When I first listened to Damn, I think initially I enjoyed it more than any other of his projects. Like, when Humble came out, we happened to have been hanging out on the day that Humble came out, and I came to your house and you were like, have you fucking listened to this? And I was like, no, not yet. And we paused everything, and that song is incredible. And I think just sitting back and listening to Damn, I enjoyed it more than any of his other stuff, but I feel like it might have a little bit less meaning than any other project he's done, with the exception of maybe like Untitled Unmastered, because I think that's like leftovers and stuff of... Yeah,
like, it's still cool. That's still a cool album, but that's leftovers from Butterfly, I'm pretty sure.
I think it feels like a string of bangers rather than like a well-rounded concept like To Pimp a Butterfly or Good Kid, Mad City. Or even in the sense, you know, Untitled Unmastered, just in the sense that they're a collection of untitled, unmastered, leftover tracks. So, but I haven't listened to it a lot. I think I've listened to the whole thing 2 or 3 times, so I don't know.
I've listened to it an assload of times.
Yeah.
I've listened to it a whole bunch of times.
So what's your take on that then? Like, do you because that's personally, I think it has great bangers, but doesn't have the same substance as his previous albums.
I have seen a lot of people saying that. Maybe not in so many words, but I think they're getting at the same thing that you're getting at, which is, and I would agree, definitely at a fundamental level, it feels different from his previous projects. You once described to me the career trajectory of Danny Brown in a really interesting way, where each album had a different purpose, and each album had maybe not a different audience, but it was trying to get at a different element of Danny Brown's personality. And I had never really understood Danny Brown until you described it to me like that, and then I went back, started listening to it, and started... I mean, I guess, again, this is like kind of a shitty thing for me to say, but I started giving him credit for doing the things he was doing intentionally.
Yeah.
Right? Like, up until that point, I kind of had to realize that I was assuming that I didn't have to read his music closely until you revealed to me, like, if you read it closely, it's really rewarding. It's a very rich text. And then I went back, listened to it closely, and it's like, wow, yeah, this shit is good. I think that you can describe Kendrick Lamar's career trajectory in a similar way, where Good Kid, Mad City is about, that's a specific story, right? That's like a concept album about him growing up in Compton. To Pimp a Butterfly is like an avant-garde odyssey, where he's... A lot of times on To Pimp a Butterfly, he's more of a poet than a rapper.
Yeah.
Like, and there are several songs on that album where he specifically calls that out, you know, and references the fact that he is speaking as a poet, speaking about his specific black experience in America and his hopes and dreams for what's going to happen. And then Damn is like a total 180 from To Pimp a Butterfly. Like, you listen to Pimp a Butterfly, and at least I thought, like, how much grander is he going to get? How much more cosmic is his scope going to get after To Pimp a Butterfly? Like, To Pimp a Butterfly has, like, it feels like it's talking about America as a whole in a really grand way. Then Damn comes out, and he's both gone bigger and gone way smaller. This is the most personal album, I think, that Kendrick Lamar has put out so far. It's certainly he's writing with the most clarity about himself.
I think that's definitely fair. Given that I haven't listened to Good Kid, Mad City, I just know the concept. It seems like his first couple albums, he really is focusing. He focuses on himself, but more so on Compton and the world that he's in, more than himself personally. And Damn feels like a very personal album.
Yeah, and at the same time, as he looks inward towards himself, that also causes him to get more broadly and abstractly philosophical than he has before. Like all that stuff about being an Israelite, all the Bible verses that he pulls in. Like the DJ that calls things out throughout the album. Do you notice him? Yep. DJ, what's his... I can't remember what that guy's name is. It's like I've looked up a little bit about him. DJ Kid Capri. I guess he was a big DJ in the 90s, and if you got like a mixtape or in the 90s, oftentimes you would hear DJ Kid Capri yelling over it, right? Doing his DJ thing. And for anyone who hasn't listened to Damn, DJ Kid Capri's role is to just interject during songs and yell things like, "What happens on Earth stays on Earth." Or like, "New Kung Fu Kenny."
Yes.
Which is, Kung Fu Kenny. Fantastic. Where was I going with that? So those lines, like, "What happens on Earth stays on Earth," or like, is it wickedness or is it weakness? Which is not something that DJ Kid Capri says, but that's something that this mysterious singer says on the album at one point. Is it wickedness or is it weakness? Though, just little like tidbits, little pieces of food for thought that he sprinkles throughout, and you apply those little sentences and sentiments to that lyrics of the album as a whole, and it's a really fun thing to think about. You know, he's struggling with a lot of, well, I don't want to say that he personally is constantly in struggle with this, but on this album, he's thinking about very big philosophical issues about his own identity, about the way that he's handling fame, about his own history. I love it. It's so good.
I definitely...
Everyone should go to Spotify and listen to Damn. At this point, I think that...
Did it come out physically?
I think so.
I don't even know if it did.
I think it's in stores. I gotta buy a physical copy so I can listen to it in the car. But I think a new Kendrick Lamar release at this point is like mandatory listening.
Yeah,
if you're into hip hop and you want to stay current, like, you listen to the new Kendrick album.
I don't know if it definitely needs me to listen to it more. I don't. On one hand, I don't know if I would like consider it one of my favorite albums of this year, but every time I've listened to it, I've liked it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I know, just like last year, a couple of my like albums like in my top 5, they weren't initially in my top 5, and they just creep up the more and more that I listen to them. So I definitely want to give it another few listens. But like I said, at the very front of it, I think it's, to me, his most listenable album.
Yeah. Very digestible, I've seen people saying about it. Where, like, To Pimp a Butterfly is like I said, it's an odyssey. It's difficult to listen to that album and try to parse everything that's going on.
Well, the big thing about that album, I won't get too much into it, but it's kind of like, a concept album similar to, like, I'll use, like, The Wall or, like, Dope Smoker as an example. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't listen to, like, a couple songs. Like, that's how I feel. Like, you can't, like, put on Dope Smoker and turn on track 6, and you're like, ooh, track 6.
I sometimes skip to the second solo on Dope Smoker, but I recognize that as a personal flaw.
But I just think To Pimp a Butterfly is something that, like, you got to take an hour, you got to sit down, turn your phone off, like,
throw it on the ground.
Yeah, you're gonna listen to that album in its entirety, and that's the preferable. It's a movie. It's the preferable way to listen to it.
Right. I think you can listen to individual tracks off Damn.
Yeah, I would say.
What have you, or any tracks sticking out to you in particular?
I don't even know the names of any of them because I just have, so far, I've just turned it on Spotify and then gone about my business while listening to it. I was raking leaves and listening to it the other day.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. So this is perfect because we're at our 30-minute mark, so we can try to move into our main discussion today, which is
Quentin Tarantino, specifically the first 3 films. Do we want to get into what our plans are, what our overarching goal is here?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So I guess first a little background, right?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Curtis and I, in case anybody doesn't know, Curtis and I are white men in our 20s.
Yes.
So we love Quentin Tarantino.
We sure do.
We do.
Boy, howdy.
That's a stereotype. It's also a true stereotype about us. That is not to exclude black people. I know a lot of black people who like Quentin Tarantino. I know people from all backgrounds who like Quentin Tarantino. He's a national fucking treasure. But it does kind of seem like it's like a prerequisite for being just like a person who's interested in movies in your 20s.
I think that's
often dudes,
a great
often
point,
white,
because that's exactly the type of person that got me into Quentin Tarantino movies, the type of person I am. And I hate to say that Quentin Tarantino is like my favorite movie director, because I think that for any person that's a little bit into movies, beyond I watch movies, that's a very easy favorite director to have. So I feel like that it almost cheapens it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I'm not super into movies. I have friends that are a lot more into movies than I am, and I've always known that there are just certain activities I can't participate in. I can't play dream casting games, where it's oh my god, this person should play so and so. I don't have enough actors logged into
I got
my
confused
brain.
because the Dreamcast is an actual video game console. Why can't you play Dreamcast games, Curtis?
No, I can't.
Why are you calling it that weird name?
I can't pick a James Bond movie and then pick every actor that I think should play every part. So I know that I'm not super into movies, but I am a little bit into movies. And he's probably, I would say, either him or Kevin Smith, which is also just as bad. Let's
do a Kevin Smith episode,
because I've got of into movies.
I've got some real complicated feelings about Kevin Smith.
I haven't seen a Kevin Smith movie after Red State, so I'm 3 or 4.
Oh no, those aren't Kevin Smith movies anymore.
Those don't count.
He was a pod person.
So yeah, we decided we want to review the world of Quentin Tarantino and all of his movies, probably in 3 parts. It seems like that's how we're gonna.
I think it's gonna shake out to 3 parts, and we're gonna split it out 3 movies apiece, right? So this first episode, we're gonna be talking about the first installment, shall we say? First installment, we're gonna be talking about his crime movies from the 90s. His Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown.
Yes.
And then what are we talking about second installment?
Part 2 is, I would say, Tarantino's movie universe. Films. It's Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2, and Death Proof / we may talk Grindhouse, Planet Terror, because it's part of the same thing, but Planet Terror is not a Tarantino movie, so who knows. And then Part 3 will be...
Part 3 is going to be the histories. Part 3 is going to be, starting with Inglourious Bastards, the World War II movie, going through Django Unchained, the race drama,
the American slavery, Civil War movie.
The American slavery. These are all great movies. I'm getting jazzed about it already. And concluding with Hateful Eight, the remake of The Thing that he did.
Man, I like your remake of The Thing. I prefer, though, my favorite alternate title for The Hateful Eight is Reservoir Dogs with a Budget.
That's good too.
That was literally what I felt like I was watching the whole time I watched The Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
But I would really liked this because we had talked about doing some Tarantino episodes or a Tarantino episode, and you broke it up like this, and I'd never really thought about it like this, and I think this is probably really the best way to do it. So I'm excited for this, and I think I never even noticed that was a thing. I just had never noticed that he did these sections of movies.
I mean, this is how you can tell I'm obsessed. I'm probably more into Tarantino movies than you are, Well, I can't say I'm obsessed. I'd never fucking seen Jackie Brown until now, so I can't say I'm obsessed. Let's say I'm obsessed, but I'm also a shithead. So I hadn't watched Jackie Brown until recently, but I'm still going to take the obsession title.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that like any great artist, like any artist who's been working at peak performance for like 20 plus years now, Quentin Tarantino's been working at, I would say, just pumping out great movies over and over again every few years. You can depend on a great Tarantino movie coming out. He's got periods, you know? Yep. He's got different, like Picasso has his different types of art that he was doing as he grew and developed over time as an artist. Tarantino has just little things, little bugs that got in the back of his mind. He was like, all right, I'm going to make all crime movies. Wait a minute, I'm really into kung fu movies also, and I want to make one of those. Wait a minute, now I'm thinking about history a lot, and I'm thinking about the role of film throughout history, so I'm going to make these 3 great, like, history movies.
Yep. The most impressive thing, I think, about his filmography is that everything is so well put together. And it took, almost 20 years for people to see this pattern in a way. Like, every movie is, to some degree, him paying some type of homage to a style of movie, and that movie is a part of a set of movies that is part of a universe in which all his movies take place. I don't know if that's too abstract.
Yeah, there's the Tarantino verse, like little events, not even events really, just like at some point it's like just a common theme between all his movies, but character names pop up and stuff like that a little more rarely recently because of the wide historical gaps between those movies. Yeah. But
although there are, I off the top of my head, I can think of a couple that are that connect his history pieces to his previous ones.
Oh yeah, we should talk about that when we get there.
Okay, we'll wait on that.
I'm interested. I'm interested in that because I didn't know about that. But I have a proposition for you. Okay, a proposal. All right,
let's hear it.
3 parts doesn't feel like enough.
Okay,
let's do a 4th part. Curtis hasn't heard this before. Everyone, you all are hearing this as I'm saying it to Curtis, but I've been thinking about this. First 3 parts, we go through the movies, we talk about them.
Okay.
Part 4, we rank them.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. Part 4, we coldly compile a list from least favorite to favorite of the Quentin Tarantino movies, and we have to agree.
Okay.
Right?
Ooh, that's tough right there.
I know already that we're going to disagree about some of these movies, and I'm excited to see the kind of deals that we hash out.
So that makes me think, though, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe it is. Now you're throwing curveballs here, and I'm trying to keep up. Before we discuss these Tarantino movies, what do you think is your favorite Tarantino movie?
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. Yeah. I would say my personal favorite is Kill Bill. Mm-hmm. I would certainly argue that Pulp Fiction is a better film, but I think I enjoy Kill Bill the most, and I watch it the most, I would say. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting point.
I would love to stack those 2 movies up against each other, and we'll never get the chance to do that if we don't do this secret 4th episode.
Okay, so I don't know if all 4 episodes, we talked about this amongst ourselves a little bit. I don't know if all 4 episodes will be in a row. I don't know if we'll subject you guys to 2 straight months of Tarantino.
I think we should.
But
I think we need to.
It certainly could be the case.
Listen, if you're not in for 2 months of Tarantino talk, half an hour every 2 weeks, you can stop listening right now, because that's what kind of podcast this is. Okay, never mind. No, don't stop listening. Don't stop listening. I'm kidding. You send us your feedback. Go email us. Tell us in person. Give us feedback. What do you think we should do? Do them all in a row? I lean towards doing them all in a row because I'm a marathoner by nature.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But
Ben and Curt Till It Hurts is the internet's only Quentin Tarantino and Resident Evil 4 podcast.
for the first 2.5 months, that's what it's going to be.
All right, so let's get into Reservoir Dogs. I had actually, I think the other day when I watched Reservoir Dogs, it was possibly the 2nd or maybe the 3rd time I've ever seen that movie. I haven't watched it very much. How many times is that a favorite of yours? Have you watched it a lot?
When I was a teenager, and obsessed with, Quentin Tarantino. This was around the time like Kill Bill was coming out. I watched Reservoir Dogs repeatedly, right? I watched it a lot. So I have kind of a background version of it in my mind. But since then, it was not a movie that stuck with me. It was not a movie that I rewatched often over the last 10 years.
Yep.
So I was familiar with a lot of the key scenes and familiar with the overall shape of the movie, but I had not watched it in a long time.
Okay. I think the biggest thing for me with Reservoir Dogs, and I will say when I watched it this week, I enjoyed it more than I've ever enjoyed it. And the reason, I thought about this a lot, the reason for that is Pulp Fiction was the first Tarantino movie I ever saw. I believe when I started watching Tarantino movies, it was in between Kill Bill 1 and 2. 1 was out, but there was a year before the second part came out. I think that was when I started watching them. And that was Pulp Fiction was so good, it was the first time I had ever thought, like, that was so good, I want to see more of what that guy does. Like, I had never thought about movies in that way. Like, with actors I was a big fan of, like, Bruce Willis and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I had never thought about directors or writers or anything. So he kind of pulled the curtain back for me a little bit into the world of movie making. And I think if you're a teenager that's getting into Quentin Tarantino, you've seen Pulp Fiction, you've seen Kill Bill. I had not seen Jackie Brown yet, but I watched Reservoir Dogs, and I found it very underwhelming. And I think that makes sense if you are comparing it to Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill. But now that I'm older and I am a fan of filmmaking, I can appreciate on a whole new level what he made with clearly $0.
Yeah.
Like, it all takes place in one room. Like, there, aside from some flashbacks, which take place in
a different room.
Like a restaurant with like 2 other actors in it, and an office, here and there on top of a roof. There are like 12 people in that movie, and you don't see the heist. You don't see any, aside from the one of the cops or any of the standoff at the end with outside with Mr. Pink. You don't see any of it. So I found it a little underwhelming after the gore show of Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill.
Interesting. We'll get back to that about Pulp Fiction. But okay. Let's keep talking Res Dogs.
I think the things that are so good about it are like I said first, what he did with such a low budget is so impressive. And I think with so little happening, the amount of tension that happens in that film is just incredible. That's one of Quentin Tarantino's strongest abilities, is holding tension and building it and then easing it a little bit, and this crescendo of anxiety to the climax of his films. And it starts right out in Reservoir Dogs. It's one of his strongest movies. He doesn't really have any bad movies. And he started as strong as he is now, just with a smaller budget, which is very impressive. Yeah.
I think Reservoir Dogs is all right. I like that movie, Like, it is a crazy impressive first movie. And you're right that the things that Quentin Tarantino is able to do just with writing are incredible. And Reservoir Dogs is a showpiece for a lot of those skills. It doesn't feel like it has much of a point.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, there's other than being really well written and like technically well written as well. It doesn't show off other than that good writing. It doesn't like, and like kind of the time stuff that he does that for some reason became a hallmark of his, even though, man, I think he gets too much of a reputation for doing like wacky Tarantino time gimmicks and shit. Which is, again, I told you we'd get back to Boondock Saints. Yeah. we could do a whole other episode on the fucking fallout, the cultural fallout.
I would love to do a
Quentin
Boondock
Tarantino, because whatever the guy's name was who made Boondock Saints.
What is his fucking name?
Was obviously just doing a Quentin Tarantino impersonation. But he was impersonating all the parts of Quentin Tarantino that don't work on their own, right? It's like, all right, my people are going to talk about pop culture, and time's going to be wacky.
Yeah.
And there's going to be shooting. You get, I don't know. Anyway, this is not a Boondock Saints podcast.
No, not yet.
Boondock Saints is not welcome on this episode. So I think Reservoir Dogs is the only Quentin Tarantino movie that comes close to actually being the stereotype of Quentin Tarantino movies that people like to deride him for, which is like, oh, it's a bunch of fast-talking gangsters, they're all men, and they shoot each other and shit, right? And you can walk up to a person who's saying that, and you can say like, well, but like the things they're saying are really interesting, and look at the ways that they act with each other. Like, they're all really distinct characters. Yes, they are all men. That is an issue.
Yeah.
That's like, it's an extremely white, extremely male movie. But it's still fine, you know.
Yeah.
Like, it's still good. It's still fun to watch, and some of the writing is amazing. And like you said, the way that he builds that tension is incredible. That scene when Michael Madsen's character is about to cut that guy's ear off, right? And he puts the music on and he's saying shit that makes you realize, like, okay, we knew this guy was weird. We did not know he was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
There was something else that I wanted to say, but I can't remember it now. Oh, Stuck in the Middle with You came on the radio while I was driving over today. Yeah. Steelers Wheel, Stuck in the Middle with You came on the big station.
A couple fun facts about that scene, actually. It was I was doing some research about the movie, and one, Michael Madsen said that scene was very hard for him to film personally because it was so disturbing. And the line where the cop says that he has a kid at home was ad-libbed. It wasn't in...
Oh, man.
Yeah, he didn't know he was going to say that, so that was very hard for him to...
Because Michael Madsen's a nice guy.
Yeah.
But he just tends to play hard asses.
And the other little bit about that scene, when Tarantino premiered that at one of his screenings, at that scene, Wes Craven walked out of that movie because he said it was too gross, too much.
Yeah.
And... coming from a guy like Wes Craven, that seems kind of weird, but I do understand the difference.
It feels gratuitous
between the real unsettling violence of Reservoir Dogs and like fun horror movie violence.
I think that is an important point to make.
Yeah.
Absolutely, is that, and that's the case with a lot of the violence in Quentin Tarantino movies. He gets a bad rap for being gratuitous. Like, there was that thing he said in an interview, like, this was years ago. Someone was like, why do you use so much violence in movies? And he was like, because it's fun. Like, I think he was trying to get a rise out of people saying something like that, because, like, you watch movies, we'll get to Django Unchained.
Yeah.
There's a similar scene in Django Unchained that almost, like, fulfills the promise of the extremely uncomfortably violent scene in Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
That I think those are the scenes that you can point to in Quentin Tarantino's filmography, and you can say, this dude knows what he's doing. He is a master of manipulating the audience's emotions. So yeah, Res Dogs, Reservoir Dogs, pretty good movie.
Yeah, I feel the same. I think I might like it a little more than you. It sounds like.
Yeah.
So the next film in Tarantino's quote unquote crime world universe, whatever you want to call it,
came out a couple years later than Res Dogs, I think.
Yeah,
it was 94. Res Dogs was 92.
Yep.
I'm such a dickhead.
I know,
I'm just calling it Res Dogs.
I thought you meant for knowing the years, because I don't know.
I'm also a dickhead for knowing
years.
that.
But Pulp Fiction. Yay.
Yeah. My favorite Tarantino movie, probably also my favorite movie, period.
I would definitely say the best Tarantino movie. Like I said earlier, I still find myself leaning towards Kill Bill as my favorite.
We'll get to that.
We certainly will.
Because you know what? I can't really argue with you.
Yeah.
I think Kill Bill is also a masterpiece. But Pulp Fiction.
So we have... how do you even start with Pulp Fiction?
Well, let's describe Pulp Fiction for anyone who hasn't seen it, because I get the feeling that a lot of people either have not seen Pulp Fiction, or it's one of those movies that are like, yeah, I think that was on in a room once,
Yeah.
right? And Pulp Fiction has been a part of my life for so long. Like, I remember hi, Mom. I remember being 6 years old and watching the diner scene at the beginning.
I didn't see it till I was like 15 or 16.
Yeah. Like, Pulp Fiction has been a recurring part of my life for so long that it's hard for me to imagine a world where Pulp Fiction does not exist. So I'd never thought about how I would describe it to somebody. Like, what is that movie? How do you think you would describe Pulp Fiction?
So, I guess I would say Pulp Fiction is the same thing as it's all part of this universe. It's these characters that are connected in the same universe that is part of this world. That it's basically a bunch of gangsters and people that have the fact in common that they know a gangster named Marcellus Wallace. It's just you kind of have just like a 24-hour period that bounces around between his associates.
It's an anthology movie, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the stories takes place outside that 24-hour period. I think the Vincent Vega and Mia Wallace story takes place a bit before or after, I think. Because when I'm not even going to try. But it's an anthology movie, right? It's got 3 sort of big stories. You've got the Mia and Vince go out on a date story. You've got the Butch story. Then you've got the Bonnie situation story. Those are kind of the 3 big pieces. And then you have the bookends of the 2 diner scenes.
Yes.
Where it all starts there and it all ends there. Everything comes together there. The themes of the movie all come together there. The tone that it's going for finds its culmination in that scene. And yeah, it's a beautiful movie. Pulp Fiction. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's a great movie.
Okay.
What do you love most about Pulp Fiction?
What I love the most about it is that I think I had to watch it probably 5 or 6 times over the course of a few years before all of it clicked. This is going to be spoiler city, by the way.
Yeah. If you haven't watched Pulp Fiction... Well, you know what? Actually, I don't think it's a movie that can really be spoiled. I think that would be like saying, holy shit, I just thought about the thing I'm about to say, and it's a crazy thing. But I think that would be like saying that you could spoil Shakespeare's plays.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, you can tell people what happens at the end of Hamlet, but if they're watching it right, it's not going to matter, really, if they know what happens at the end.
So I think that there's just because the whole movie is chopped up into these different anthologies, and they take place out of order, and so it takes a while for it all to sink in. And I remember I had watched it multiple times before it, because it ends on a pretty good note. Jules and Vincent are in this diner, and they stop this robbery, or they stop themselves from getting robbed, and everybody else gets robbed, I guess, now that I think about it. Yeah. Because they have their suitcase that has something in it.
Yeah. Marcellus Wallace's soul.
Are you a
No, that is a theory that I am a fan of. We're getting kind of ahead of ourselves here. Let's section this out. Let's finish what we were talking about.
So I like that we'll say that it ends with they stop themselves from getting robbed. They make themselves okay. Jules says he's done committing crime, that he had too many close calls, and now he's just done. And Vincent...
He's going to walk the earth.
Yeah, he's just going to walk the earth.
You mean you're going to be a bum.
Yeah. And exactly, Vincent thinks that that's stupid, and then the movie just ends, and it's kind of ambiguous. But there's so much that happens in that movie that I didn't realize the first few times I watched it, that you realize later that day, Vincent dies. The very next job he goes to...
is to stop Butch.
Yeah, and so they had this divine intervention, as Jules calls it, and says, that's it, I'm done, that was too close, I'm not committing any more crimes, I'm out. And he lives, apparently.
Jules would have been with Vince, probably.
Yeah.
At that apartment. They're partners. It seems like they're work together a lot.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, okay, this is useless for anyone who hasn't seen this movie. But I think we're at the point now where we can just talk this movie. We know it well enough. Would Vincent still have gotten killed if Jules hadn't quit? If there had been someone there to back him up? Right?
That's a good point.
Because Vincent gets killed walking out of the shitter. If there had been someone to look out for him.
One of the common themes in that movie is that everything goes wrong when John Travolta goes to the bathroom. He's in the bathroom when Mia overdoses on his heroin. He is in the bathroom when Butch comes back to his apartment and he gets shot, and he's in the bathroom at the diner scene when the robbery breaks out.
That's funny. I'd never realized that before.
Somebody,
but you're right.
I'm almost positive somebody pointed that out to me. I don't think I was smart enough to pick up on that.
It's just this movie has so many little things like that.
Yep.
So many little realizations that you can have. That's one of the things that makes it really fun to return to, and one of the things that makes it a really rewarding favorite movie to have.
You just, and that like I said, that is kind of, you just, every time you watch it, you're like, oh man, you get something, you notice something you didn't notice before, and it's just enjoyable over and over again for different reasons. What would you say is your favorite?
My favorite thing. I don't know. I asked you that question without really having an answer. I think that my favorite thing is one of the same things that Tarantino has in a lot of his movies, but it's the rhythm of the dialogue and the way that he gives little pieces of information in the dialogue without breaking the flow. Like other movies, even movies that I really love, I can point to moments in them where it's like, well, they had to have that line in there to set up this thing that happens later so that you would have this piece of information to make this other thing make sense, right? Again, that's like screenwriting 101. At some point, it's just putting together a puzzle.
Yep.
It never feels like Quentin Tarantino has put together a puzzle. It feels like the dialogue has emerged from him in one organic, continuous stream.
Yep.
And it really, it makes it easy to rewatch. Because I don't notice annoying little things like that in Pulp Fiction. Because I'm pretty sure they're not there. I think that all that's there is this like steady stream of pure fucking gold.
Yeah.
Right? What else is there about Pulp Fiction? What else do we love about Pulp Fiction? We can even talk about just little things that we love about it. We're going to be here for 3 hours.
Yeah.
The podcast going out the window. Shut it down.
That's okay. We can... We're almost at an hour now.
Oh man, what's our time?
56 minutes.
All right,
but I think we're gonna shove that out the window for some of these Tarantino episodes.
Yeah, and I don't think we're gonna be here for that long with this movie, but I think it's worth talking about some of our stuff. What do you think about? What's your takeaway from the? What's the first part? Is the Mia and Vince go out on their date, right? That's the first segment.
Yes.
What are some cool things about that part?
That, I still, to this day, like I said before, one of the things that Tarantino does best is create tension. And one of the scene where Mia ODs is just one of the... It's still, I know what's going to happen. I've seen it 40 times, and it's still thrilling to watch now. You just have... you have John Travolta, a.k.a. Vincent, who is... already a character that you like. He's relatable, you like him, you understand the situation that he's in where he has to go on a date with his boss's girlfriend.
Awkward as shit.
He just has to keep her company.
Yep.
He has to do things she wants to do that he doesn't want to do, like go to a cheesy themed restaurant and then participate in a dance contest, and he ends up having more fun than he thinks, and then he's in the bathroom. She likes to do cocaine. He likes to do heroin. She must have been cold and is wearing his overcoat. Yeah. And she finds a bag of heroin, thinking it's cocaine, snorts it, OD. And from that point on, it's such a thrill ride. Like, I find myself laughing uncomfortably because it just makes you have these reactions that you just don't. Your body doesn't even know how to process this kind of tension. Like, immediately when he sees her ODing on the floor and it just cuts right to him peeling out down the street, it's like, it's funny because and it's such a drastic situation, and like
the reveal of her OD'd on the floor is a really striking shot. It's just like a close-up of her face, like drool,
her eyes rolled back,
It's a really disturbing
blood coming out
image
of her nose.
And he just runs out and he's like, oh shit, fuck. Gets her in the car and goes over to friggin' Eric Stoltz's house
with the most, like, he brought her to his drug dealer's house to help to bring her to figure out what to do. The guy doesn't want her to come, and those three characters, the drug dealer and his girlfriend and then the other friend that's there, are the most fucking annoying characters, and it's so perfect just because you are on John Travolta's side. You're like, what the fuck is gonna happen? She's dead. Like, that's it. This is over. And they're trying to be helpful, and you just have these characters that are just so not helpful that you just are screaming, "Shut the fuck up!" the whole time you're watching it. Like, they're not helping find anything. They're just arguing for the sake of arguing. Like, it's hilarious. And then, you know, they build up the tension of, well, how do we use this adrenaline shot? Who's going to do it? What's going to happen? I don't fucking know. I've never done it. Like,
right.
And
my little black book.
Yeah. I've never seen a little black book.
Get me a magic marker. A fucking felt tip pen.
So funny. And then
I need to stab her 3 times.
And still to this day too, though, like for dramatic effect, when his drug dealer shows him where he said you have to get through her breastplate, and he's like on her, and it's like you can feel trying to stab a needle through someone's breastplate.
You test it on yourself, and it's like, what would that feel like? Oh,
and you know, he stabs it in, and just everybody that watches that movie shits their pants because she doesn't like, oh, hey, I'm awake.
It's an adrenaline
instantly
shot.
Wakes up screaming and writhing all over the floor.
Is it fun fact about that shot? Actually, have you heard this? The shot where he stabs the needle in. The way that they got that visceral effect was that they filmed him doing it in reverse, and then reversed it back.
Oh, really?
Right. So John Travolta didn't stab Uma Thurman with a fake needle.
Yeah.
Or they had a fake needle. He held it to her chest and then pulled it away really fast. So that's why it looks so fucked up. And that's why it like makes you cringe when you see it, because I don't think they could have gotten the same effect if they had filmed it in forward motion.
Yeah.
And just been like, okay, that's good enough. Let's just edit around it, because it's not a shaky shot. It is a clear shot of the full room, and he stabs a needle into Uma Thurman's chest. It's really upsetting. Great movie.
So then
move on to Butch.
Yeah, we have Butch's whole thing.
What do you think of his conversation with the taxi driver?
That is a very strange,
it's an odd scene,
and I don't know, I guess, like, what purpose it serves. Like, and I don't know.
It's interesting, like, it's a character establishment scene, because I guess the thing about that scene is, well, that's not the first scene, right?
Right.
That you see Butch. You first meet Butch in a dream sequence featuring Christopher Walken, the famous, like, I shoved that uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass. That, like, the famous watch monologue that he gives,
which is fantastic.
And now I give it to you.
Yeah.
I might be misquoting there, but that's the gist of it. That's the introduction of Butch. So all you know about Butch is that guy gave that speech to him when he was a child. What does that do to your life? Yeah. And then I think that the revelation of the type of person that Butch is in the taxi, after having, actually, you see Butch before that too.
You first meet Butch when he's...
We didn't rewatch Pulp Fiction, so we're kind of hashing it back together. You first meet Butch
in the bar.
Yeah, when Marcellus Wallace is telling him what they're going to do.
Yeah.
He's saying, you need to throw this fight. So those are the two things that you know about Butch. And then he's in this taxi cab. Yeah. And the cab driver is asking him these, like, incredible philosophical questions about, like, what it feels like to kill a man.
Yeah.
Like, did you know that man died? How do you feel now that you know that he died? I don't know. I find that scene fascinating. Funny, weird thing about that scene. Again, hi, Mom. I'm going to tell a story about you. My mom doesn't like that scene. So anytime we would watch that movie together on, like, the VHS that we had of it, she would fast forward.
Oh, really?
She would just fast forward through the taxi scene. She would just say, yeah, this scene's kind of boring. Nothing really happens. And we'd fast forward.
Get to the violence.
Let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get to the pawn shop. Yeah. What do you think of the pawn shop scene?
That right there.
It's probably the most famous scene in Pulp Fiction.
Oh, I would say sure. Holy shit, that scene is Pulp Fiction's... I was going to say it's the tension scene in that movie, but maybe that's what makes Pulp Fiction so great, is that it also has the Mia scene. So
each one, every story kind of reaches towards a point of highest I think that's one of the things that makes the movie work is it's really long, but it's really 3 separate stories. That's the anthology thing again. So each one of them has its own climax, and they all kind of play off each other.
I just think that the most unsettling thing about the pawn shop scene is that you never see it coming. Like it's so out of left field that you just like you are just as shocked as Butch and Marcellus as they are.
Right. It's like, wow, we knew our situation was getting really fucked up. We didn't know that this was going to happen.
It's like, you're like, well, this is unusual. This is not what I would expect to happen. And it just keeps getting worse. And then, for me,
then the gimp comes out.
The climax is they just unlock this box in their basement. Go get
the gimp. The gimp's sleeping. Well, wake him up.
And there's a fat guy in a leather suit that lives in a chest in their basement.
The gimp.
And that really fucked with me. Like, that took something from me. Like, you have movies that when you start to get into movies, you have these movies you have to watch. And I feel like for a teenager, at least for the way it was for me, is there are these like 10 movies or so, depending on when you grew up or whatever, that you want to see something fucked up. Like, you want to see something. I was going to say that your parents won't let you watch, but I guess you watched Pulp Fiction with your mom. And Pulp Fiction is one of those movies, but like that scene is up there for me with like, you know, scenes from A Clockwork Orange, or you watch those movies and you're not the same after you watch that.
It's like, hey, have you ever heard of Ichi the Killer? Yeah. Like some fucked up Japanese movies. Have you seen Versus yet?
And I think the fact that, I mean, Marcellus gets raped, right?
Marcellus does get raped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not played for laughs.
No, it's not a good
one
time.
Of those really uncomfortable Quentin Tarantino scenes where it's like, yeah, he took this seriously.
Yep.
He knew the effect that a scene like this should have on the audience. He knew that there are a lot of things that you can play for laughs. They shoot a guy in the head in this movie.
Hilarious.
I accidentally shot it. What's his name?
Marvin.
I shot Marvin in the face. You must have hit a bump or something. But like the rape is not played for laughs, which is
funny,
appropriate. You know, it's like that shouldn't have been. But
and I think that is something that's really interesting about Quentin Tarantino is he can take things that he takes very serious things and he either makes them hilarious when they shouldn't be, or so just unnervingly real that they're not.
We're gonna get to this in Django again, but anyone who has seen that movie knows what scene we are going to talk about in that movie. But yeah, I think that's one of the greatest qualities of Quentin Tarantino. It's something that doesn't get talked about a lot.
The what scene in the apartment where that's hilarious.
Say what again?
Yeah. And it shouldn't be. Like, it's a very tense scene, and that kind of alleviates some of those tension. That reminds you, these guys are, you know, hitman gangsters, but you're on their side. It reminds you that you're on their side.
One of the great things about that scene is that you've been introduced to Jules and Vincent already. They're like talking about burgers. They're just coworkers, right? Yeah. Like Vincent just got back from vacation, so he's telling Jules about his vacation. Yeah. It's like, yeah, they say weird things in Europe, and weed is legal.
Yeah.
And then they're in this apartment, and Vincent is silent, which is odd because he was the one who was talking more in the car. And Jules is talking a lot of shit. It's clear that he is playing a character, and it gives you this other interesting perspective.
So, if we're going to be talking about the universe that these take place in, the Tarantino universe, it's worth mentioning the briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
So
I alluded to it earlier.
Yeah. What is your take on the briefcase?
I think the briefcase is kind of a Schrodinger's cat situation. I think that it is kind of a postmodern acknowledgement by Quentin Tarantino that things like this exist in movies. It's one of the magical things about movies is that you can have an item and it doesn't matter what the item is. All that matters is what the characters think and feel about the item. And I think that's the great thing about the briefcase is it's at this point, it's probably, and it's a MacGuffin, right? There's a term for it and everything. But if you're trying to explain what a MacGuffin is to someone, just say like, it's the briefcase from Pulp Fiction, right?
Yep.
You never find out what's in it. It's obvious that what's in it is important to the characters, but it doesn't need to be important to you, because you're not watching a story about the briefcase. You're watching a story about the characters. All that said, of the many theories I have seen about what it is, I like the theory that it's Marcellus Wallace's soul.
I think, for me, and I love that it's so open for interpretation, I guess, because, well, we've established that these movies take place. I'm trying to think the best way to organize this set of thoughts. Mm-hmm. If you need an answer for what's in the briefcase, if it bothers you and you can't decide and you need an answer, you can kind of get an answer, because I've looked this up, I've read about it.
I don't know about this.
In one of the first drafts for Pulp Fiction, Tarantino states what's in the briefcase. Mm-hmm. It's diamonds.
Fucking diamonds.
And they took it out because either he realized or someone pointed out to him, you just kind of had a thing with diamonds.
Right. So people are going to think you're the diamond guy.
Maybe don't do diamonds. And
what about gold?
So if you need an answer, you can tell yourself it's diamonds. Personally, I really like to think that it's diamonds because for me, just having that answer is satisfying, but also Vincent Vega, who is John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, is brothers with Vic Vega, who is one of the criminals from Reservoir Dogs. Right. So I like the idea that you don't see what happens really at the end of Reservoir Dogs. Mm-hmm. I don't think Mr. Pink gets away, but it's a possibility that he grabs the diamonds and runs. Mm-hmm. I like the idea that in some way it's the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs, and when Vincent looks in the case, he sees not only the most valuable, thing he's ever seen in his life, he's seeing the diamonds that his brother died trying to steal.
Right.
And now he is finishing his brother's job. Uh-huh. So I like that aspect about it. But I also love the idea that it's somehow Marcellus Wallace's soul, and I love the idea that it doesn't fucking matter what's in the case. So I just think that there's so many ways to look at the briefcase. Personally, if I had to choose, I would love, just for the connectivity, I would like to think it's the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to be, and there's no...
Ultimately, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
That's the cool thing about the briefcase.
Yeah.
It's a briefcase with a light bulb in it.
Yeah.
That light bulb is a great touch. He opens it up and gold light shines out on his face, on John Travolta's face.
Oh, also, I think it's probably worth pointing out that the lock on the briefcase, the password is 666, which lends credibility to the theory that it is his soul. He sold his soul to the devil, and now he's trying to get it back.
I think calling that a theory is a little bit... You might be gilding the lily a little bit. Well, no, I totally misused that phrase, but you're... It's putting on airs on that idea. I just like it.
Yeah. It's just cool to me.
It's just cool. Makes me feel good to think about. Do we want to touch on is the Bonnie situation? For a long time, whenever I would watch Pulp Fiction, I forgot that the Bonnie situation was in there.
Yeah.
It's the last of the 3 stories. It kind of leads right into the second diner scene. Now it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand it when I was younger.
I think the biggest thing about it is that it's funny. It's the
funniest one.
It's a very humorous scene, and the tension in it isn't the same type of tension as my boss's wife, who I was hanging out with, is going to overdose, or these guys have been kidnapped and are going to be assaulted and murdered in a basement of a pawn shop.
Wow, man, when you lay it all out like that, I'd never thought about it exactly as it is.
The tension in the third scene is just that situation. We accidentally kill the guy, and now we have to clean up the car at this guy's house.
Right, like, it doesn't matter that he's dead.
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter that Marvin is
Marvin.
dead. We just need to clean this car.
We need to clean it before my wife comes home.
Right.
And
I've got a friend who lives near here, played by Quentin Tarantino. And his wife is going to be home soon. He's doing me a favor. It's a very human scene, right? It's a very human kind of segment of it.
And I think it's fun. There's a lot of funny. The interactions between Harvey Keitel are hilarious. Jules and Vincent, wearing those like shorts and white.
You look like nerds.
Yeah,
you look like a couple of nerds.
It's just hilarious.
I see people wearing things sometimes that look exactly like their outfits.
I just think, I think the humor of like lining the seats with old quilts
or
and
like
stuff.
The scene, the shot where they're going over like what's gonna happen if Bonnie comes home.
Yeah.
And it's like the camera rushes through and they've got their hands on Marvin's body and they look over at the camera. They like mug for a second.
I will say, and this is something that comes up a lot in a lot of Quentin Tarantino's movies, is I don't like the gratuitous use of the N-word.
That's a whole issue.
And the Bonnie situation. That is really one thing that takes away from that for me personally, is that I know when I watched that last anthology, I'm gonna have to sit through that, and I don't like it.
I'm gonna have to watch Quentin Tarantino say the N-word over and over again
1,000 times. that comes up it feels like a lot.
It does.
There's even in Reservoir Dogs, and it's almost the most uncomfortable. Maybe not more than Django, I guess, but like they start, a few characters use the N-word, comparing that, saying they need to keep it together because they're classy white criminals, not a bunch of low class black criminals. And I'm just like, I don't want to. I like Mr. Pink. I don't want to hear him talk shit like that. Like,
I think that one of the things I like about Quentin Tarantino and his writing, and the reason why I think that it's not my call to make.
Yeah.
Like whether or not it's okay for him to say that.
Yep.
No part of my identity has ever been attacked by that word, so I can't really make a good gloss of whether or not it's okay for him to say it. That's for other people to say and for me to listen, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's my place. But I think that where he's coming from is that he uses it as a way to make his characters not cool.
Yeah.
I think that there's a big interplay, especially in these early 3 movies, between, hey, these guys are cool, right? Also, they're criminals.
Yeah.
Also, they say the N-word a lot. Like, a lot, they say it. And like, oh, this guy, Jimmy, the Bonnie's husband in the Bonnie situation. Oh, he's cool. He's Jules' friend. He does say the N-word a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And
isn't Bonnie black also?
Bonnie is black.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot. It's a complicated relationship that Quentin Tarantino has with race. Yeah. And again, not my place. I'm here to listen. I want to listen to people's opinions about it. But for me, it's absolutely not a deal breaker. It's just another complication in an already very complicated filmmaker's
I think
work.
For me, I feel very similar to that. Like, it's not my call to make. I don't like it personally, but I would never be like, you can't say that, because it's not my call to make. And there have been times where, like, Samuel L. Jackson has addressed Quentin Tarantino's use of the N-word and said it was basically fine because it's in the context of this movie and he's not saying it, in his real life.
Right.
And to which I say, that makes sense. But also, Samuel L. Jackson's not the mayor of black people.
Right. Samuel L. Jackson is not a spokesperson.
You have more of a say in it than I do, but
right, certainly,
still,
by having that lived experience.
There is no final say. Like,
right. It's an ongoing conversation that I think it's an important conversation to have about Quentin Tarantino's movies. And maybe that's a good moment to address Jackie Brown.
I think that is...
I think that's a good segue.
That's the perfect segue, which we will ruin by saying the word segue too many times.
Segue.
So Jackie Brown, you had never seen it.
I had never seen Jackie Brown until this week because I'm a poser.
I watched it once before, and this was the second time.
How long ago did you watch it?
2012. So 5 years ago. 5 years. Was the first time I ever saw it, and then today was the second time I ever
watched
saw
it like 2 days ago.
My first take off of it is I almost wish it weren't a Quentin Tarantino movie because I think it would be regarded as a much better film if it weren't compared to movies like Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, Reservoir Dogs. It's a very strange movie. I mean, I think it's not only is it takes place in this quote unquote crime world of the universe that he's built. It's also him making a blaxploitation. I think that it's his take on a modernized blaxploitation film.
Definitely more modernized than like Kill Bill is a modernized kung fu movie.
Yep.
Because Kill Bill takes very directly from that kind of thing. I think that Jackie Brown is more of a crime movie than it is a blaxploitation movie.
Yep.
But I think that you're definitely onto something there.
And I think it's a good movie, but going into this without thinking about any of them too much, I would say it's his worst movie. I think probably, I think I can safely say that's it feels more like his first movie than Reservoir Dogs. It looks like Jackie Brown feels like when you like a band a lot, so you go and listen to their first EP from when they were unsigned, more so than it feels like a band's third album. And I that might be a little vague, but I feel like that's the best way I can describe it.
I think that's a good analogy because that's an identified phenomenon. I may have used that exact phrase earlier in this podcast. Sorry, roll back, check that, listeners. I think that's an identified phenomenon.
Ben, you just said identified.
Oh shit! I think that's a thing that happens. Pretentious. Shut it down. Where you get a lot of your ideas out in the first couple of things that you make, and then you get to your third thing, and it's just different or it's not as good. With that said, I disagree completely with you.
Okay.
I liked Jackie Brown a lot.
I liked it. I think it's a good movie. I'm
not going to say I liked it as much as Pulp Fiction. I definitely liked it more than Reservoir Dogs.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Jackie Brown herself, like the character Jackie Brown, is an underappreciated female hero, right? She's an amazing character. Like that, the scene where she's talking to, I forget what Sam Jackson's character's name is in that movie.
I just watched it today.
Something. Sam Jackson's character. She's talking to him. He has come to kill her because she has information and he's worried that she's going to talk to the cops. And you walk into the scene and you think, all right, he has the power. She's on the lower end of the power scale. And they just shift it back and forth.
Yep.
And Quentin Tarantino does like almost a show-offy thing where he has Sam Jackson turn the lights down whenever he's in power. Yep. And then Jackie Brown, played by Pam Grier, the incredible, indomitable Pam Grier, turns the lights back up. Yep. So it's like he works in the shadows. He's able to manipulate and intimidate people in the shadows. She can do it in broad fucking light. She can do it in full visibility. And she ends that scene in power between the two of them.
I mean, to the point, she is so manipulative to the point where to kind of set the scene, I guess, just to really drive it home. She is a 44-year-old ex-criminal flight attendant. That still smuggles money for Samuel L. Jackson's character, and she gets busted. I don't even remember how the cops find out.
The cops found out from Chris Tucker's character.
Right, okay.
Who told them that she was going to have $50,000 in an envelope.
Yep.
So they intercept her in a parking garage. They go through the whole fucking rigmarole. They're like, hey, do you have a warrant? No, but we can go get one. Fine, go ahead, look in my shit. They end up finding some drugs, which they are very happy about. She didn't know about. Chris Tucker's character didn't know about Beaumont.
You know, I actually, one of the things that really killed me in that movie, and I shouldn't say that it's a flaw in the movie, but when they ask if they can look in her purse and she says no, she says, do I have a choice? Mm-hmm. And they say, you can say no, but then Michael Keaton here will hold you and I'll go get a warrant. Mm-hmm. And I believe you can't do that. Like, if you don't have a warrant and they're not under arrest, you can't make a person just stand there while they get a warrant. Like, I really think, granted, this is California in the early 90s, cops don't have the best rep at this point.
Yeah.
So maybe not, but that was the first thing I thought. I was like, you can't just hold somebody.
Yeah.
Like, because. But,
Right.
So I don't think that takes away from it. But
I think you can't do that, but if you're a character and you're interested in creating a dramatic situation, you can say that you're going to, and then just hope that your gambit works, that they take it at face value. Because I feel like in that scene, and this is one of the things I love about this movie, you can think about how the characters felt in different scenes. I think that in that scene, Jackie's thinking like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, because she knows she has gun money on her person in that envelope in her bag. She's like, why are these dudes talking to me? This is not a random search. They know what I have.
Yep.
Let's just see how far I can get. Let's just play this out.
And so with that setup, going back to what I had started to just say, in this movie, she is so manipulative in broad daylight that she's manipulating. By the end of this movie, she's manipulating the police. Mm-hmm. She's manipulating her drug dealer boss. She's manipulating a PI that is kind of fallen in love. I say kind of fallen in love with her. Has fallen in love with her. She's playing this game with everybody. She's even playing a game with the audience because there is so much trickery and like, yeah, I know I said that to him, but that's because I'm on your side.
You never know exactly how she feels until the very end.
As it's panning out, you don't know. You know she's playing everybody, but you don't know whose side she's on until you find out she's just on her own side.
Right, she's on her own side. She just
wants $50,000 or $500,000. I don't remember how much money she ends up.
Yeah, I think she ends up taking $500,000.
I think it's $500,000.
Yeah, that's the amount that was coming up.
She gets away with
fucking Cabo.
So it's very impressive. I love when you can't see something coming, and that's obviously something that Tarantino's great at.
It's the same kind of writing trickery that makes Reservoir Dogs interesting, but in this case, it actually has a point.
Yeah.
Right? In my opinion, at least. I don't talk shit about anyone who likes Reservoir Dogs. It's a perfectly fine movie. No. Like Curtis. I want to talk shit about Curtis to his face in his own home, in his own podcast studio, but it's writing trickery to the point of making this one character pop.
Yep. And
it works.
I think for me, even though I don't think it's his strongest movie, I think the shining moment for Jackie Brown, or the shining pieces, are, I think the acting is just so incredible in this movie. Every character is just perfect. Like Robert De Niro kills me.
He's so good.
Every
Lewis
time.
Right?
Like, he is so fucking funny.
And then he kills that guy like later on in the movie.
The funniest thing, like the first thing that I just remember like laughing is he's staying at that apartment with that woman who lives in
Melanie.
Yeah, and she's like
she's one of Sam Jackson's girls.
Not Melanie. Oh. The black one that's the dancer, and she's doing like a lap dance. Yeah,
and he's holding
when he's just sitting in that chair.
He's holding the boa in his lap, just like
making this face is priceless.
He's bored. He looks bored. This woman is doing like a striptease dance in front of him.
Just this kind of aging woman that wishes she was a soul singer.
He looks bored, but not unappreciative. Like, he understands that she's doing something nice for him. It's like the same look he would have on his face if she cooked him kind of a bad dinner.
Yeah. And two, the thing that kills me, it's a very funny moment in the movie, is after Robert De Niro sleeps with who you're kind of led to believe is Samuel L. Jackson's girlfriend.
Right. Up until that point, they've had interactions that suggest that they are in a romantic relationship.
He sleeps with her not really knowing, and then he admits it to Samuel L. Jackson, and you find out that he just, like, Samuel L. Jackson has like 3 or 4 girlfriends that each watch over his different like crash pads or whatever.
Right.
And just Samuel L. Jackson's like, you didn't know and you still slept with her? Like, you didn't feel bad? And he was like, I felt appropriately bad afterward. Like, and they just start laughing. Like,
right.
It's so funny. Like, also Michael Keaton in that movie.
Michael Keaton's so good.
Hilarious.
He's one of the cops.
He's so animated and he's so jerky, and everything he does is hilarious. Oh, sorry.
Somebody describes him at one point as just being a guy who's having a lot of fun being a cop or something. Like, I can't remember exactly the phrase they use, but they're like, he's really enjoying being a cop or really enjoying being a detective. And you can tell that's exactly the like look that he gives and the kind of performance that he gives.
I mean, obviously, I can't say enough to Pam Grier's credit. She's
incredible.
She's fantastic.
She's unbelievable in this freaking movie.
She is... you believe, you don't doubt for a second that she is playing all of these characters. Mm-hmm. It's so believable. She's beautiful even though she's in her mid 40s, you know, she just, everything about it works. You know, she's
beautiful but in a realistic way.
Yeah, and you kind of have the same Sydney, I believe is the dancing woman. Sydney is her name. And she is similar to Jackie Brown. She's a middle-aged black woman that, you know, apparently loves soul music. And there's a stark difference between those two. Like, Pam Grier is sexy, and how good does she look in that suit at the end?
Oh my god, like, man. She's incredible. She's incredible. And in every way, not to objectify Pam Grier,
right?
But she does look amazing in that movie.
And as far as her role too, it's so believable, and she just kills it. I mean, obviously she's one of the pioneers of blaxploitation film, you know, Coffee, and that's like the go-to one. But I know she's been in a lot. I haven't seen a lot of blaxploitation films.
Me either.
And then I don't know the guy's name, but Max Cherry is hilarious.
Yeah, the bail bondsman.
Yeah, I called him a PI earlier.
Yeah, because he's also a bounty hunter.
Yeah, he's he
has that same. Bondsman. He's in law enforcement. He's just on the private side of law enforcement.
So funny, just such a great character, and it's like one of the funniest. There's a lot of funny in this movie.
It's a funny movie, yeah.
When he's in that like record store, like looking for a tape by the Delphonics, because he knows that Jackie likes them, and now he kind of has a crush on her.
I love that crush.
Yeah,
like you feel it, and at the end, like, correct me if I'm wrong. I watched it a couple days ago, and maybe I didn't pick up on something. But at the end, she doesn't end up with him.
Right.
But you get the feeling that she enjoyed their time together.
Yeah.
Right.
That she kisses him.
She genuinely appreciates him. And the crush was reciprocated.
Yeah. She kisses him, and she offers to let him come, and he says no, and then
it's like the end of like Casablanca.
Yeah.
It's a very classically. It's a classic mystery ending.
She's like, "Are you sure you don't want to go?" And he's like, "Well, you know, thank you for." He like basically says, "Thank you for humoring that, but I know you don't want me to come."
Right.
And you know, it's just a very sweet. Like,
did she?
Yeah,
I wonder.
She
like,
leaves,
maybe she did want him to come.
She drives. The end of the movie is her driving off alone, kind of singing about that song about how hard it is to be a woman in the ghetto.
Right.
And it's kind of like, it's a little melancholy. It's a little like, maybe she really did.
Maybe she liked Max Cherry.
And it seemed like, you know, she played him to a certain degree as much as she played the other characters. And it's kind of like, oh man, like she really did reciprocate that feeling. So it is very nice. I do think it's a really good movie. I just think it sticks out compared to his other films.
That's true.
And it's definitely probably his funniest movie, I would say.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to it.
Maybe instead of ranking all of them, we just give them superlatives. Like, all right, which one's the most violent one?
Well, let's just do both.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I just have to mention real quick on that is one of the other funniest things. Like, Robert De Niro has this weird relationship with Melanie, and he hangs out with her a lot because Samuel L. Jackson is coming
together.
and going. They smoke weed together. They watch
constantly.
TV. Yeah. She shits on Samuel L. Jackson, and he kind of plays the middleman.
She tries to get him to turn against Sam Jackson, and then Lewis, the Robert De Niro character, is talking to Sam Jackson. He says, "Do you trust Melanie with your business?" Sam Jackson has the great response where he's like, I trust Melanie to be Melanie.
Yeah.
Like, the thing I know about Melanie is that she's always going to try to do this stuff, so I just make sure she never can. I love that line. I trust Melanie to be Melanie.
He even sleeps with her for 3 minutes, no less.
Yeah, it's specifically called out in the title card. They start
later.
having sex, and 3 minutes later, yeah.
And
she's like, what does she say? That was fun.
Yeah. So they really build this kind of strange, funny friendship that these two have, and then she just annoys the shit out of him, and he kills her. He shoots her in a mall parking lot,
right?
And then drives off.
It's a very like, wow, there's maybe a reason this guy went to prison.
And
this guy's a dangerous person
because he's so funny and laid back throughout the movie, and then he goes to commit his first crime since being out of prison, and he's not doing it very well. He's sweaty and he's impatient. And she won't leave him alone. She's teasing him about it. And she's like, where'd you park the car, Lewis? Like, how are you going to get away if you don't know where the car is parked? Is it in this lane? And he fucking just shoots her. And he's like, I told you it was over here. After she's dead and on the ground.
Right.
Like,
it's another one of those great Quentin Tarantino moments where it's like, whoa, I felt one way about this character. And now he has made me feel a whole other way. And it's that like dissonance.
Yep.
Creates an interesting effect.
So I guess that's it's hard to talk so much about these big movies when you're cramming them all into this.
I wonder if we should. We're at like an hour and a half now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we should probably wrap it up a little bit. I don't know if we talk about any more. It's just going to be 3 hours long. Each of these movies is 2.5, 3 hours long.
Yeah.
If we get too much into each one, obviously we're both addicted to Quentin Tarantino.
Is a good word.
We recommend all of them. Even the worst Quentin Tarantino movie is still a Quentin Tarantino movie. Like, that's not where I was going with that, Ben. That was rude. I was being bipartisan about that. Even his worst movie is still a pretty good movie.
That's true.
No matter
which one you think is his worst movie, you probably don't hate it. Right? If you like his other movies, if you like some Quentin Tarantino movies, you probably don't hate any of his movies.
I'm trying to think now. I don't know. I'm a little curious what I think, how I would rank.
Me too. Movies. That's why I want to do it on the air.
Oh boy. Okay. we will. Part 4. We'll finish up.
Let's think about it.
And maybe Part 4 will be a good. In addition to doing that as a recap, we can point out some of these little connectivity dots between all the films,
because I don't know about a lot of this stuff.
I wish I could spoil it. Maybe once we kill it, I'll spoil it for you, if you don't mind. So we can wrap it up. We're at like an hour and a half now.
Let's wrap it.
I was gonna say we could finish our little our little Reservoir. God damn, man, I can't say it.
It's fine.
Our Resident Evil 4 topic from last week.
I'm gonna say the fight against what's his name, the little guy. Ramon Salazar?
Salazar, yep.
The fight against Ramon Salazar is a garbage fight. It's a terrible fight. It's a fucking terrible fight.
I like that fight.
It's all right. I don't know. It's bad in comparison to the rest of them. It's like, it's so ridiculous and overblown, but what you actually have to do is so relatively boring.
Yep.
It feels like they took a fight from Contra and just made it 3D. You're like fighting a big plant monster. Okay. Which, granted, now that I describe it like that, sounds kind of sweet.
One thing that's a bummer about that fight, there are a couple fights in that game that are actually broken. And
you can cheese it. You just have to go over to the right.
Yeah. So what's your favorite?
My favorite? Oh, man.
Okay, I have all the bosses listed if you need me to remind you.
Yeah.
Del Lago, who is the giant sea monster.
Not my favorite.
El Gigante. Chief Mendez, who is in the barn.
The tall guy?
Yeah.
Maybe. That's a maybe.
The Garador, who is the blind guys with the claws.
They end up just being regular enemies.
Yeah. And then the split path of fighting El Gigante in the tunnel or the Chainsaw Sisters. Ooh, man. Verdugo is the big, tall, black, skinny thing that just walks around, and you have to like knock the CO2 over and freeze it.
Oh, that like alien looking thing? Yeah.
Then the El Gigante twins up in the
lava room.
In the lava room.
Yeah. So a lot of lava rooms in this game.
Salazar is after that. And then the...
no, you know what? I know what my favorite fight is. It's the fucking knife fight.
Oh, with Krauser?
With Krauser.
I was going to say, because then it's just... The most forgettable one for me is the one where you're in the compartments that are hanging and they fall off and there's like the centaur beast.
Oh, yeah, that's just a weird-looking thing.
And then Krauser, and then Sadler is the last.
Krauser. It's got to be Krauser.
That's another one of those ones that's broken if you...
Yeah?
Yeah, did you know about that?
No.
Literally, you can use your knife. It's funny that it's the knife, because...
Well, yeah, it's got to be, right?
You just swing your knife, and he can't hit you. He just dies. Like, you just slash him, and he dies in like 2 seconds.
I think that's intentional.
Probably is. I would say my least favorite are either the Garadors, because they're fucking terrifying. I even when you have to fight two of them.
They're
at one
really
point.
scary. The blind ones.
Yeah, the blind ones. It's like the hardest thing ever. Also, Del Lago is probably my least favorite. I think it's a great fight and a great mechanic, but it's the only boss battle in the game where you have to play by their rules. You can't use your own weapons.
Yeah.
So no matter how many times you beat it, you have to beat it. You can't just shoot him with a rocket launcher and kill it and continue playing. You have to fight it with the spears every fucking time.
It's cool the first time.
Yeah, very cool the first time.
Makes a big impression.
And then my favorite, it's kind of weird. I don't even know. I really like fighting the El Gigantes every time.
The dual El Gigantes.
Yeah, that's every even when it's just the one, like the different times. It's like my favorite.
I like
every time they
them
come
too.
back around, because there's like different ways to fight them every time. The first time, like the dog helps you, and the second time you can shoot the boulder and crush it, and then the third time you can open the lava pit and drop them in. Or the Chainsaw Sisters. I fucking love those. My favorite types of parts of Resident Evil 4 are those overwhelming swarms. That's what I like. I like fighting off 30 enemies at once. That's probably why I like Mercenaries so much. Mm-hmm. But that's that.
All right, that's out of the way. The Resident Evil 4 minute, culminating our Quentin Tarantino talk.
Yeah, so next time we get together, which will be in 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, that's when you'll be hearing us. Who knows when we'll actually physically be sitting down and recording it.
We'll be talking about Tarantino's movies, which are Kill Bill's Volumes 1 and 2 and Death Proof.
Death Proof. A lot of people forget about Death Proof.
It's a strange movie.
It's probably his most obscure movie.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to count the scenes that he directed in Sin City, which, should we include those?
I don't think so.
Me either. I don't want to watch Sin City again.
The only reason that we shouldn't include those is because for a hot minute it was super cool for Quentin Tarantino to present films and give shit movies like Hell Ride, make people think because it says Quentin Tarantino presents Hell Ride that it was a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Nope, he just liked it.
Yeah, he just liked it and gave him a grant to make it.
Yep.
So yeah, do you want to exit us out or?
All right, hey, this has been Ben and Curt Till It Hurts. I'm Ben. You can find me on Facebook.
Oh, we did it wrong.
No, what? We're doing plugs, right?
Right. Yeah, we're doing plugs.
Do we want to do plugs?
We're doing plugs.
What's your plug?
You go first.
I don't know.
You're Ben,
I'm Ben. I'm on Facebook. You probably know me on Facebook.
I thoroughly love that. I'm pretty sure every person that listens to this show just knows us. They're just our friends. Like,
yeah, friend. So did you have any people tell you what they thought of the show?
I don't think so.
I've had a few.
Nice.
Like some of my coworkers. So like, hey, if you guys are listening, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's a ton of fun to make, and it's even more fun if people listen to it. So like, hi. I hope your day's going well.
Now that I say that,
and
I probably did have people, and they're gonna think like, Kurt is such an asshole.
Just say you did, and edit out the part where you said you didn't.
Yes, everybody has been so supportive. No, people have always been supportive of my podcasting and production endeavors. That's part of what makes it fun. Is that people. I love when people screenshot that they're listening to my podcast or something. And send it to me. But I'm Kurt.
And I'm Ben.
Yep. I was actually... we did it again.
How bad can we fuck this up?
I was just going to plug my Instagram.
Oh,
so
man.
you did the same thing that I did.
I did it on purpose.
Yeah. It was a joke.
That was a funny joke.
So you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter and Spotify at KurtCake5K if you want to look at pictures of me and my dogs, or listen to music that I think is good, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's out, but don't forget to check out my buddy's podcast, Into the Cave. I did a little guest spot on it the other day, so you'll at least be able to hear my stupid voice on it for the first time you check it out. And yeah, next time we'll be back with those Quentin Tarantino movies.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep. Bye.
Goodbye.